welcome back, Pokemon fans. We are getting into the first top 4 match at the Independence, Missouri Midseason Showdown. Which we are seeing. Oh goodness, what are the last names?
We got Alex Williams and Ricky Green.
Absolutely. So both of these players are players that we've seen on stream already today. On the left, you'll see Ricky Green's team, which consists of Manectric, Tapu, Fini, Incineroar, and Shedinja. And on the right, you've got Alex's team, which consists of Yveltal, Manectric, Tapu Fini, Bronzong, Groudon, and Hitmontop. So
I don't think either of these players probably imagined they'd face another Manectric here. It's really interesting to see the two Mega Manectrics match up here. We saw on stream with Ricky's team how pivotal, no pun intended, the Manectric was in getting the board positioning that it needed. And with the Intimidates, the Volt Switches, but with potentially an opposing Manectric in the back on the other team, there's that potential for a lightning rod switch in, and they might essentially cancel each other out in terms of effectiveness. So that's one reason I'm looking forward to this matchup. It'll be really interesting.
Absolutely. So we saw Ricky make really good use of Zygarde earlier. How do you think it's going to fare in this matchup, which is a little different?
Looking at team preview, it looks like it's more in Alex's favor for me because of the Yveltal. And I think that if Ricky is going to do something, I think he really needs to milk the Fini Zygarde combo for all it's worth. With light screens and swaggers and dragon dances and whatever he can do. So I'm thinking Zygarde is a huge key for Ricky here, but the Yveltal is just going to be really tough, I think, for his whole team.
Now, this is something that I think is super interesting. Both players decided that Manectric Tapu Fini was their best lead. So there's a little bit of mind games here, right? Like you could choose to not Mega Evolve your Manectric in order to maintain Lightning Rod.
Definitely. I don't think you need to Mega Evolve to get the Intimidate at all right now. But also on this, why would you go for a Volt Switch? Yeah, it's really interesting. We could see some Nature's Madnesses, we could see some Protects, we could see some Eerie Impulses.
Yeah, so I like that we see neither player choosing to Mega Evolve, and actually both going for the Protect, not wanting to get left behind in the not protecting and getting Icy Winded or something. So that turn really went in Ricky's favor because he avoided that Nature's Madness and got Light Screen up while taking 0 damage. However, we're still kind of in the same position, right? Like neither of these Manectrics can attack with an electric move for fear of hitting into Lightning Rod. And if you switch, like you're risking taking an Icy Wind or a Nature's Madness on the switch.
Right.
I don't know.
In one sense, it makes sense for them to just hard switch out their Manectrics, right? But then you're getting rid of your Lightning Rod support. So it's all mind games here. It's 100% mind games.
See a Snarl coming out from Ricky, and I like that. I like that move. You don't want to hard switch out into a a Volt Switch, and so we do see a potentially a Hidden Power Water. I think would probably make the most sense to be running on that.
I don't know. I mean, he doesn't have Kyogre, so but it wasn't super effective because I was thinking maybe it's a Hidden Power Ground. I really don't know. It could be Hidden Power Ice. He might have been predicting the Zygarde to come in there.
Hidden Power Ice, I like that, that play into a potential Zygarde switch. I don't think Zygarde is as intimidating in this match as it was versus Brandon earlier. Alex does have double Intimidate to really kind of slow down that Zygarde. He's got the Foul Play, which kind of, if Zygarde's boosting up, going to be taking extra damage from the Foul Play. So not as threatening, but definitely still something you have to watch out for. So it looks like we're just going to gnarl each other to death until, somebody makes a move. Like, because there's no safe way to switch anything in right now. You give up a lot by switching in on one of these things, so it's just sort of a risky game to be playing.
Right. Yeah. Who can break the other's Manectric, non-Mega Manectric and Fini combo first? I wouldn't be surprised to see a hard switch out from Manectric here at some point, but of course Alex is trying to call that, going for the hidden power, presumably Ice, into the Manectric slot. So yeah, they're just kind of trapped on multiple levels here.
Right.
The Tapu Fini, of course, are actually doing something. They're doing the Nature's Madnesses, the Icy Winds, but even that only goes so far.
So we do see Tapu Fini switch out on Ricky's side. This Manectric has taken 2 Snarls and Light Screen is up, so even if Alex called that and went for the in there, at this point it's 3 Snarls. It's not going to be dealing a ton of damage to Zygarde. See the first attempt at a so I do like that. Excuse me. Alex was like, all right, at some point one of us is going to have to switch. I think now's the time, since he's seen me not go for the Volt switch. It didn't quite work out. And so now there's an Icy Wind on, so both of these speeds are kind of, both sides have taken 1 Icy Wind each.
And Alex is really kind of trapped in a sense. He really wants to keep his Manectric in for the Lightning Rod, because otherwise, or not. I was going to say otherwise Ricky could just go for the Volt Switch KO the Fini. We'll see what he goes for here. Snarl, okay.
So
Nature's Madness would be big.
If we see, a Coil and Zygarde avoiding the Nature's Madness, that's really, really big. Like,
it is.
Because now Zygarde's boosted up its speed, so it's at neutral, and it's at +1 attack, which is going to be really valuable for it. Of course, this Yveltal does have access to Foul Play, which is going to deal a lot of damage to Zygarde now that it's at +1.
And I can see Alex going for a switch Fini out into his own Manectric, get the Lightning Rod again, and then Foul Play the Zygarde. But Ricky's got to know Foul Play is a huge threat right now. So let's see if he plays defensively here.
So we do see the Manectric switch. So if Ricky went for an electric attack here, Manectric is going to get the +1. But Zygarde's got the potential to go for this ground move and just KO the Manectric. So we do see Oblivion Wing coming out from the Yveltal. Not very effective into the so it's not very effective into the Manectric, and Thousand Arrows does come out from does KO the Manectric. Of course, I'm sure Ricky is wishing that his Zygarde was able to hit that before his Manectric attacked. So no damage coming from his own Manectric, but he did KO the opposing Manectric, so now he's free to actually go for some electric moves here. And with this Zygarde, being at a now, like, it's going to be able to deal a decent chunk of damage to both of these Pokemon. I would hazard a guess that it would be enough to KO the Tapu Fini at this point.
Hard to know. If it's defensively trained, I think it might live even a +1. Wow, Sucker Punch. Yeah, that doesn't actually do it. Wow. So Ricky,
so that Sucker Punch missing the KO there.
Yeah, Ricky effectively won the Manectric Fini, standoff. But he still does have to deal with this Yveltal. Now, assuming that a Thousand Arrows is coming out here, that should be it, really.
So, the Manectric, you know, it had several things going for it on that turn. This Zygarde is Aura Break rather than Power Construct, so that inverts the Dark Aura boost, meaning Sucker Punch's damage is actually weakened by Dark Aura rather than strengthened. So between that, the fact that this is a bulky Yveltal, that, you know, its main Foul Play or Oblivion Wing, so it likely doesn't have a whole lot of physical attack investment, and there was a Intimidate down from the... There was an Intimidate put down from Manectric Mega Evolving, so those three things kind of, you know, all worked in Ricky's favor in order for it to survive that Sucker Punch, which normally I wouldn't expect it to take that so well, and that really gave Ricky a great advantage here, because his Zygarde at +1 going to be hitting Groudon super effectively with 1,000 arrows. So, like, what an absurd game, right? You know, both players, they're just stuck, right? And I 100% understand, like, you don't want to be the first to switch because then you're taking damage for nothing, but if you just stay in and stay in and stay in, like, eventually things go not your way. So,
right. And once Ricky did break through, it was over. I mean, essentially, and that was surprising too. I thought the Yveltal would be much more of a problem. Now, Ricky did get some nice breaks there. He crit the Yveltal with 1,000 arrows, and a turn or two later, he crit the Fini with 1,000 arrows too.
Right.
So those might have been pretty big for him.
That the Fini crit, like I said, being at +1, like, Zygarde's got a decent chunk of power behind it, but you know, he did get those crits, and he also got you know, he dodged two which are 90% accurate. So yeah, like, he won that standoff eventually. A little bit of RNG in his favor, but definitely well played. So I'm excited to see, you know, do these players think my best lead here, and even though the standoff feels awkward, I'm going to go for it again because it's my best option. You know, maybe we'll have a little bit of an awkward standoff, or maybe these trainers will adjust just a little bit, you know, to maybe not have to play that situation again. Get into game 2 here, and Ricky decided to guns, so to speak. You know, going with this Manectric Tapu Fini lead while bringing Groudon. So Groudon's threatening a lot of damage right away, right? Like, you know, in this position, it's not really going to be hit by Manectric at all. Doesn't have to fear that. And it's going to be able to threaten with Precipice Blades, could threaten with a Swords Dance. I'm personally excited that we get to see something a little bit different than that standoff like we saw in Game 1. So this game is definitely going to go differently because both players have an opportunity to be on the offensive right away. Of course, Ricky does have to be careful. He can't just Volt Switch safely off of Alex's Tapu Fini for fear of a potential Manectric switch-in causing a dead turn. He may want to go ahead and Mega Evolve to get this Intimidate off. Is making that play, bringing in his own Manectric in order to block a potential Volt Switch. Getting an Intimidate put off on to this Groudon. If it goes for a Volt Switch, though, it's going to be susceptible to a Precipice Blades coming from Groudon. So no Volt Switch, goes for a Protect instead, as Nature's Madness goes into the Groudon slot. So that's going to get a decent chunk of damage, you know, 50% actually, into this Groudon, which is very beneficial. However, Groudon does get a Swords Dance up, which is definitely going to help it out, you know, in the long run. So taking some damage from the Nature's Madness, but it did get boosted to +1 after being intimidated, putting it in a strong position. Interesting situation because it's kind of in Alex's best interest to not Mega Evolve. He can go for a Volt Switch or into either one of these Pokemon. He doesn't have to fear the Lightning Rod anymore. Ed doesn't think that Ricky's leaving his Manectric in, so gets that call right. He doesn't need to have Lightning Rod to prevent a Volt Switch. Goes ahead and Mega Evolves in order to get some extra damage on his Volt Switch. As he goes for the Volt Switch into Tapu Fini, deal a ton of damage because Fini is a pretty bulky Pokemon. Ahead and brings in his own Tapu Fini again. So now we do see the light screen coming up from Ricky's Tapu Fini. Not going to help out a whole lot from this Precipice Blades, which is going to come out and deal a ton of damage. So +1 Precipice Blades into Tapu Fini is able to pick up the KO. So Tapu Fini, it traded its life to get light screen up. And now we've got a Ho-Oh out. We have seen that it is the Flyinium Z Ho-Oh. Potentially pick up the KO on this Groudon at the amount of HP it's left at. But it's just hard to say for sure. So, of course, being at +1 attack is very threatening. Of course, Ho-Oh, resist Fire Punch, immune to Precipice Blade, so it's not in as much fear, but Manectric, of course, does not want to take those attacks if it doesn't have to. So, see, if Ricky has the tools, of course, I imagine he's got his Zygarde in the back. However, with, Hidden Power Ice potentially being the Hidden Power type that we saw on Alex's Manectric, it might be dangerous for him to bring it in and get it set up. He does have Light Screen. He does have Misty Seed potentially available. So those are things going in his favor. It's hard to say for sure. So we do see the Volt Switch off of what was the Tapu Fini slot. Now the Manectric gets a little bit of chip damage. And that does allow for... Ricky to bring his Manectric back in for another Intimidate to bring this Groudon down to -1. It's now at neutral. And we do see this Flyinium Z coming out. No Protects on Groudon, so it's going to be full power. However, it has been reduced in due to the Intimidate coming from that Mega Manectric. So if this -1 super... Sky Strike is able to pick up this Groudon at 50% HP, which it fails to do. And so that's also going to be really big. So this Precipice Blades connects with Zygarde. Chunk of damage to it. And Zygarde is, of course, threatened by potentially Hidden Power coming from that Manectric. A combination of Hidden Power plus Blades could be enough to pick up the KO. The only problem is Ho-Oh is going to move before Groudon and could potentially finish it off with a Brave Bird. So Groudon, switching out, doesn't want to put itself in that position to take that attack, as Zygarde goes for a Protect, trying to avoid getting hit with the... However, Alex makes a good call there by going for the Volt Switch into Ho-Oh instead of going for the Hidden Power Ice into that Zygarde that has a Misty Seed boost and a Light Screen up. So Zygarde's Protect kind of wasted there. It's sort of a thing like, in hindsight, it would have been awesome to go for a Dragon Dance right there, put yourself in a good spot. That turn kind of going in Alex's favor. However, Ricky does get a Tailwind up, which is going to be really beneficial for his Zygarde here. He does have to watch out for Icy Wind coming off of that Tapu Fini. Definitely not something that he wants to have to contend with, as Ho-Oh switches out. I'm going to bring that Manectric in, get an Intimidate off on this Groudon, which is going to help Zygarde take this potential Precipice Blades just a little bit better. Potentially get a a Dragon Dance up. So win for the next 2 more turns after this. He's taken 1 Intimidate from this Manectric, so this Dragon Dance brings him back up to neutral. And this Icy Wind is going to connect. So the Dragon Dance essentially completely nullified. However, Icy Wind did like 4 damage. Oh my goodness, look at how much bulk this Zygarde has, thanks to Light Screen and Seed. So Zygarde is at neutral attack and speed, and Tailwind is active. So that's definitely something that aware of. If a combination of attacks from Manectric and Zygarde is able to KO this Tapu Fini, Zygarde's in a strong position to really deal some damage. If it's not able to pick that up, then Fini can continue Icy Winding and really kind of neuter this Zygarde a little bit. It's just a matter of workout. There's so much that goes into it. So we do see Tapu Fini switching out. Doesn't want to take the Volt Switch as Zygarde goes for a second Dragon Dance. That Dragon Dance is going to be massive there, because now this Zygarde's speed is boosted as well as its attack being boosted. That's going to be extremely, extremely beneficial for this Zygarde. So that's a really good turn for Ricky. Of course, Alex does get a chance to reposition here. He'll be able to bring his Manectric in for another Intimidate. But now this Tapu Fini is threatened by a its plus Volt Switch combination. Groudon definitely threatened by this Precipice Blades that Zygarde could be clicking. While Alex's Manectric does want to get an Intimidate put down onto this +1 Zygarde, it doesn't really want to switch in to the 1,000 Arrows either. So this is really a pretty big turn here, depending on how this damage comes out. From the Manectric, going ahead and sacrificing that Groudon in order to not lose Trick, as a Volt Switch comes out from the Mega Manectric, deals just enough damage to proc that berry on the Tapu Fini. So we will be seeing Ho-Oh coming back in here. Going to be able to take an Icy Wind, with relative ease, right? It's going to be neutral, and Ho-Oh just has a ton of bulk, so not something that has to worry about too much. But we do see Nature's Madness coming out instead of an Icy Wind, so that's definitely... I was over here definitely, standing for Icy Wind here, but getting a little bit more damage down on Zygarde, potentially put it in range for a Sucker Punch from a... not a bad play by any stretch of the imagination, right? Like, getting some more damage on it, that way you can finish it off with Yveltal. Definitely a good play to be made right there. You could assume, like, oh, if he tries to get greedy and go for another Dragon Dance, Precipice Blades plus Nature's Madness would have been able to pick up the KO. So I do like that play from Alex's side of the field. The Tapu Fini switching out in favor of this Manectric. That's going to bring, I believe, Zygarde's back down to neutral attack now, rather than +1. It's hard to count all of the... It's hard to count, with all of the Intimidates and Dragon Dances. Since I'm not taking notes, that's it's on my bad. That's my bad. but that is going to weaken this Zygarde when it tries to hit this Yveltal. Light screen anymore, so these special attacks from Yveltal are going to be dealing a little bit more damage than they would previously. It's hard to say, though. Zygarde's bulk is just so incredible that it might be able to take one of these attacks, and it's definitely threatening for that Manectric. Going to be faster than the Zygarde. Hits it with the Hidden Power Hidden Power Ice. Since that was super effective, we can finally conclude that it is Hidden Power Ice. And so that's actually a really big KO to take, because now it's going to leave just Manectric and Ho-Oh versus this Manectric, Yveltal, and Tapu Fini. Of course, Yveltal is Assault Vest, so it should be able to take any attacks from this Manectric very well. And Ho-Oh is super bulky, but should be able to take at least one attack from Alex's Manectric. So we're going to see a little bit of a war of attrition here, especially since Ho-Oh has a through Recover as well as Tailwind. So this Eerie Impulse coming out, that is going to really kind of slow down the damage coming out from Alex's Manectric, as he also returns fire with an Eerie Impulse. So both of these Manectrics are going to be dealing a lot less damage as Ho-Oh goes for a Recover, bringing its HP back up to just shy of full HP. Another important thing here is that Misty Terrain has ended, meaning Ho-Oh can now burn that Manectric with Sacred Fire, which could potentially be really big, if we're playing a war of attrition with both of these Pokemon, just continually lowering each other's special attack. And then the big thing here is Tapu Fini does have access to Nature's Madness, so even though we're lowering the special attacks of all these Pokemon and everything else, this is going to deal 50% of the remaining HP regardless, going to put yourself in a good position, to weaken the Pokemon and kind of end the game. So we do see Volt Switch into Tapu Fini, doesn't deal a ton of damage as Tailwind comes out from Ho-Oh, so that's going to ensure that there's no speed ties for a little bit. However, we do see Heal Pulse going into the Yveltal slot, bringing it back up to full, and so that's going to make Yveltal quite a bit longer lasting as well. You can't just double into it at this point to finish it off. So with Ricky's Manectric being at -2 and not being able to switch out, that's definitely a huge advantage for Alex, being able to reset that drop to come in and fire off full power attacks. We're definitely still goods either way. A critical hit just completely turns this game on its head, and given the fact that both players are kind of running a lot of bulk right now, we're looking at potentially seeing a lot of turns, so a lot of chances to get critical hits. Fini switching out in for Manectric, and that Intimidate's going to matter a decent amount onto Ho-Oh, as it is going to prevent it. It's going to weaken its damage from Sacred Fire and from Brave Bird. See the Eerie Impulse into the Yveltal slot, as well as so that's going to weaken that Oblivion Wing by a lot, as well as the Sacred Fire into what was the Tapu Fini, but is now the so that's going to slowly chip away at this Manectric, kind of putting Ricky in a position to and of course Ricky is going to have to be aware of his Your Time. He's down to 1.5 minutes, so he's going to have to make his decisions quickly if this game is kind of going into a war of attrition like it appears it might get to. He also definitely wants to take at least one more KO before it gets too low. That way he can't have switching in order to preserve his, reset his drops and everything else. Goodness, what a game. So we do see the Sacred Fire connecting with that Protect from the Foul Play into the into Ricky's Manectric. Doesn't deal a lot of damage. Correct me if I'm wrong if he's in chat. So if the Pokemon using burned, the damage is reduced, but if the target is burned, it's not. Important mechanic to know, since, you know, when you're like, oh, Foul Play is based off of the attack stat of the target, the Pokemon using Foul Play is burned, that attack drop is applied after taking the attack of the target versus before. So, you know, that's sort of why we're seeing such little damage, because this Manectric has been intimidated, so its attack stat is going to be very low, and the Yveltal is burned, so that's reducing that attack even further. So now we've got Ho-Oh and Manectric versus Tapu Fini and Yveltal. So definitely kind of needs a crit in order to wrap this up. As see this you don't want to be able to see the Tapu Fini continuously heal pulsing the Yveltal. So we do see an Icy Wind coming out. It's going to get some chip damage on both Pokemon, and also allow Yveltal to attack before them due to the speed drop. However, we do see Ho-Oh go for a Tailwind, which is going to ride that from the Icy Wind speed drop. So now, like, Ricky's in a position where if he can KO the Tapu Fini, out heal the he can out heal the Yveltal. Since it is burned, it's going to be taking a little bit of chip, and as long as it doesn't heal too much damage from you know, like, slowly over time, that burn will be enough to pick up the KO. You know, so Manectric's on low HP. Eerie Impulse to prevent too much damage from coming out from the Oblivion Wing, which is going to reduce the amount that Yveltal's able to heal by, which is going to be really important. So this Brave Bird, I believe we're at -2 at this point, into the Yveltal. A little bit of damage. Snarl picks up the KO into Manectric. So now this is just a matter of, like, which one of these Pokemon is going to get KO'd first. I want to manage to Ho-Oh. It does have it does have the move Recover to get itself some more HP, while Ella is going to be forced to go for Oblivion Wing in order to heal any HP, and due to that Eerie Impulse, its Oblivion Wings just aren't going to deal quite as much damage, which in turn affects how much it's able to heal for. So these Foul Plays coming out, not dealing a ton of damage, and Ho-Oh does go for the Recover. I'm not really sure if Yveltal has enough to survive this turn of burn or not. It does, but it looks like that's going to be pretty close to the end. I suppose a critical hit in order to get more HP off of this Oblivion Wing, but Foul Play I don't believe is going to be able to pick up the KO onto Ho-Oh, as Brave Bird does connect, picking up the KO on Yveltal, and that is going to be Game 2 for Ricky, sending him into the finals of the Independence, Missouri Midseason Showdown. I believe we're going to take a couple of seconds to get the
the next top 4 match, and we'll be right back for you guys with top 4 match to see who will be facing Ricky in the finals of this Midseason Showdown.